Hey, this is Steve with Real-Time Music Solutions, and today we're going to take a quick look at building original shows in Sinfonia 3. Since the beginnings of our company, we've had customers ask about getting their own original musicals or symphonic pieces into Sinfonia to gain more control over their productions. We're happy to announce with Sinfonia 3 the wait is finally over. Before we dig in, note that building shows and routing third-party instruments will be changing and improving over time. This video marks where we are with our Sinfonia 3 beta release in mid-September 2024. Let's take a brief moment to go over what you'll need. Firstly, you will need MIDI files of your music. These can be incredibly simple MIDI bounces from notation software like Finale or Sibelius, or incredibly detailed compositions you've made in digital audio workstations like Digital Performer or Logic. A quick warning for those unfamiliar with MIDI. You absolutely cannot take a plain audio file and turn it into a MIDI file with one of those online audio to MIDI converters. It does not work. So, you have your MIDI file or files. This gives Sinfonia a guide on what notes to play, but Sinfonia also needs to know how to play them. This is where third-party virtual instruments come in. You'll need your own stock of virtual instruments to power your music in Sinfonia. These can be purchased by many different brands online or downloaded for free. Though not required, if you use a player like Kontakt to host your instruments, and you have an instance of Kontakt already in use in the program you used to create your MIDI files, you can absolutely save that Kontakt template as a multi and load it into Sinfonia. Okay, I'm now inside of Sinfonia, and I have a different show in place at the moment. I want to go ahead and click Tools, Build Original Show. This utility creates a custom show file with MIDI files. Go ahead and click Next. Enter a show name. Click Next. Add your MIDI files. These are your individual songs. Hit the plus. And if I had more than one MIDI file here on my desktop, I could select more than one by clicking the first, holding Shift, and then clicking again, but I've only got one. Carnival.mid. Click Next. Successfully created. Skip the share show data. We'll probably be revamping some of this language later on. Click OK. So here I am in my MIDI file. And if I hit play, you don't hear anything. We can see there's action. We can see that this is showing that all these MIDI channels for these different instruments are active. There is stuff going on. But we haven't selected any virtual instruments to play back these notes. Stop, go back. This is where the reroute tab comes in. And we might be renaming some of this stuff in the future, as I said earlier, but for now, this is the reroute tab. We want to enter edit mode, which you can do by clicking here or clicking the lock icon. And we have to add our virtual instrument. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and hit plus, and I'll add Kontakt. If you're familiar with Kontakt, I could just start dragging instruments into the rack to the right, but I did create and save a multi in my digital audio workstation for this demonstration in particular. All right, and I can see that all of my instruments are here, and they're still allocated to their own MIDI channels. MIDI channel 1 all the way through 8. And close this. And now we need to create presets. I'm going to go ahead and drag this over, and I'm going to do this a total of 8 times because I've got 8 instruments to cover. And I'll go ahead and name each one based on the orchestration in the song. And as you saw in Kontakt, each instrument is on its own MIDI channel. You'll want to make sure that the presets you're creating match up with those channels. If you're working with your own original content like we are here, you'll want to uncheck these, ignore controllers, ignore volume, because maybe you have controllers and volume messaging that you've already specified in the MIDI file, and you want your instruments to utilize that stuff. If you're replacing an instrument in one of our official shows, you're doing Sound of Music, etc., you might want to ignore controllers and volume because you don't want to pick up our own internal MIDI messages. But for original content, you'll want to turn these off. And because I've got 7 more instruments to go, I'm going to be dragging this instantiation of Kontakt over 7 more times and naming and labeling each channel. Okay, we now have our 8 instruments that line up with the 8 instruments here. And now we're ready to drop them in place. So I'm going to take this flute and I'm going to drop it into the timeline right at the front of the song. It's going to ask me what track I want to drop it onto. We want to drop it onto the flute part. Click OK. Now we'll need to change this drop-down filter, because right now we're viewing the flute and we don't want to change the flute anymore. I'm going to move to the glass harmonica. Okay, as you can see, when I drop this in, I wanted it at measure 1, beat 1, but it went to measure 1, beat 2. This is something we're going to be revamping in the future, but for the moment, I can just edit it here in the inspector. And we'll move on now to piano 1, piano 2, violin 1, violin 2, viola, and cello. Now all of our presets have been created and dropped into place. Sinfonia will now play back my own custom content utilizing my own virtual instruments. From here, I can do any of the kind of editing that you're used to in Sinfonia. How about if you'd like to add more songs? You can do that too. Provided you're in edit mode, click the plus button. A new dialog box opens up, asks you to add the song, hit plus, and select your MIDI files. As we said, this is the first iteration of Sinfonia Creator. We hope you enjoy it and look forward to the many updates and improvements we make moving forward. This has been Steve with Real Time Music. Thanks for watching.